Texas A&M got its first win in the Mike Elko era, a 52-10 victory over McNeese, and joined here by Travis Brown. Travis, just kind of your initial thoughts after, they're 1-1 to start the season.
Sure. I think that they accomplished what they needed to accomplish. First, score points, win the game, and then work on some of those little fundamental things that some individual players needed to do, most namely Connor Wigman, getting his footwork down, delivering some more accurate passes, and making some good decisions. Really across the board, I think every single one of those was accomplished.
There wasn't anything crazy with Wigman, but he did what he needed to do, obviously, to manage the game, 11 for 14, but nothing, no crazy deep balls, but I guess did what he needed to do to manage this one? Yeah,
he was actually, so on passes between 4 and 15 yards, that mid-range pass to the left side, 8 for 8 in the game. And so, 14-yard pass is once you get past that 10-yard range, that's getting downfield a little bit, and that's a lot more accuracy than he had last week, especially, and it wasn't just dinking and dunking down the field.
The player of the game on offense, at least last week, I thought was Le'Veon Moss, and I think the player of the game this week on offense is Le'Veon Moss. Mm-hmm. That's a name that I feel like, as much as we've talked about it being a room of running backs, and we saw a lot from Amari Daniels today, that seems to be like the guy for this Texas A&M offense.
Sure. The question was asked, why did he pick Texas A&M over Alabama? Also a good program, and it was the coaching staff, and he got to know this new coaching staff and has seemed to garner their favor as well. But, they've cycled through guys through both games. You saw both Amari Daniels and E.J. Smith get carries in that first game against Notre Dame. Today with E.J. Smith out, he said he was a game-time decision, but he was out today. They even rolled over A.J. Donata, the walk-on, got some play there at the end of the game. So a healthy rotation with Le'Veon Moss carrying the biggest part of the load.
Were there any surprises? 52-10, I know for my sake, it's about how I thought this was going to go. But, I don't know. Were there any surprises?
It's about what the simulation thought it was going to go, too, by the way. Check out the simulation.
Yeah, do that.
Pretty close.
Well, so, moving to defense, it's another week where we didn't really see a whole lot of stuff in the backfield. They had one sack from Nick Scorton against Notre Dame. Nothing really going this week. I don't know. What do you see there?
So on the game rundown, we post right at the end of the game. I kind of graded each of the position groups in the game today, and most everybody got an A to an A+. The two positions that I couldn't give an A+ to, I gave, I believe, a B and a B- was the defensive line and the linebackers, because they didn't quite get the amount of pressure that I thought they should get against this level of opponent, especially with how highly touted they were coming into the season. There wasn't a whole lot of pressure there. And then with the linebackers, too, a little bit once the secondary guys got in, a little overplaying the ball, a little bit of tentativeness, so I couldn't really give them an A. But, yeah, I think if there was one thing to kind of roll your eyes at a little bit, it was probably the defensive front, which is a little bit surprising.
Right. Were they just overhyped coming into this season, or is this going to be a trend we see, or do you think we're eventually going to see that defensive front that we have thought we were going to see all year?
I think they'll work into it a little bit more. Scorton did what he did in the Big Ten. He's seen big, strong offensive linemen before. There might be a little bit of a gelling process. And I kind of go back to a little bit of what Mike Elko said about the wide receivers last week, and that was he thought they were playing a little bit slow, kind of thinking through the new offense, the new scheme, where they're supposed to be instead of just reacting. Maybe seemed like there was a little bit of that in the defensive fronts in this game, maybe even more so than last game. And so much of that defensive front, when you're pass rushing, you're getting after it, is built upon the atmosphere in the crowd. And, it's an 11 a.m. game. It was a 90,000, decent crowd, but it certainly wasn't like the first game. Maybe not bringing a little bit of their own energy as well.
I was actually a little impressed with the size of the crowd. I didn't know if we'd see the third deck that full. 90,000. It was pretty full. This is probably their easiest test all season. That's not a secret. But they have SEC play next week. How ready do you feel like this team is for a road trip at Florida?
I kind of go back to what Mike Elko said. It's like they're as ready as they're going to be because it happens next week. I think it was, if you're an A&M fan, you're probably reassured with some of the things you saw from the wide receivers, some of the things you saw from Connor Wigman, getting his feet under him, throwing the ball. I think it was Le'Veon Moss said he was as determined as he's ever seen him this week after what he did or didn't really do in the last game. And so I think it's one thing to get back to the fundamentals against an FCS team, but when that pressure is coming in a little bit harder, when the wide receivers are a little bit less open, are those fundamentals going to stick around? I think that's the biggest question. Yeah,
I'm curious to see. We're going to find out next week in Gainesville. We'll have that coverage, of course, on KBTX. But for Travis Brown, I'm Tyler Shaw here at Kyle Field.